Hello and welcome to the fourth episode. Gosh, it's already our fourth episode of the 21st Century Writer Podcast. My name is Diane Patterson, and with me today is my co-host,
Hannah Steenbach.
Yes. And our topic this week is Save the Cat and Other Writing Guides. What we think of them, which ones you may want to pick up. But first, we're going to cover how the week's been going.
All right.
And how much we've been getting done. Hannah, you start.
Because that's the life of the writer in the 21st century. We get to get things done.
Yes.
I'm really happy with this week. I've done two really important things. I've been writing like mad. I've been actually writing every day, which is woohoo, awesome.
Awesome.
And I'm getting slowly but surely ready for the release of my next book. And I set up, and you're the first one to hear about that. I set up a Goodreads giveaway.
Oh, good.
And it'll start on the 27th, and I'll talk about it in all channels where you can find me. I'm giving away 5 copies of Durrell's Journey. They will be print copies, they will be signed, and they will be available in the entire world.
Wow. You are a brave woman.
So that's a big thing for me, and I just set everything up, and I started the Create Space project for my new book because my formatting people needed the ISBN numbers for the cover. So,
wow.
It's all really, really exciting, and things are really starting to move. So I hope there will be a cover reveal. I have no date for that yet, but there will be a cover reveal fairly soon, and the pre-order will go up. And release date for my second book in the series is May 26th. So
wow.
if all goes well, in a bit more than a month, I'll be having a new book out.
Good. Yay.
Awesome. How about you?
Well, last week was spring break, and this week I had people home sick. So I didn't get as much done as I wanted to. Is it just me, or is the camera not swapping back and forth? I'm actually mechanically swapping it back and forth. Is that right?
I'm not seeing it, but
okay.
I'm seeing you, and I have the idea it might be swapping back and forth, and I'm just not seeing it. So
okay. Well, but I did get some writing done today, and I mean not today, this week. I haven't gotten anything done yet today except prepare for this. I'm having a problem. I'm in the second draft of the book, and I write mysteries. And the first draft is always so much fun, where stuff is just happening and people just show up and do things, and I really trust that there's a reason that my imagination has these people showing up and do things. So I try to think about why they're doing this. And in the second draft, I have to make it make sense. And this sometimes can be harder than I'm expecting it to be. I'm like, it was so much fun the first time. It's really satisfying when I find a reason that they're doing these things. But it takes work, and it's not as straightforward a process as doing the first draft.
I bet it is. I tend to do something really weird. I tend to curl up in bed in the evening and talk to my characters. And sometimes they actually have amazing answers. I mean, basically, to put it into real terms, I'm communicating with my subconscious.
Right.
But I've had this thing that the whole plot points to a character getting killed, and it's a character I really love, and I hate killing characters that I love. So I did this with him, and I called him when I was in this state where everything was possible. And I talked to him and said, I'm really sorry about this, but it looks as if you have to die. And he was really cool about it. And he said, yeah, that's okay. I'm fine with it. But I don't want to, go out with a whimper. Make me go out with some drama and a bang and doing something heroic, and I'll be fine with it. And I thought, yeah, I can work that into my story.
Okay. Well, come on, there. Yeah, I don't do that as much. I sort of show up to see what my characters are doing, but I don't generally interview them or talk to them in the same way. I may need to do something like that.
I mean, it's just an experiment. You can try it out and
Yeah.
see how it works.
Well,
And
yeah,
I
it
really am
worked.
surprised by my characters sometimes, and I trust that this is my writing subconscious. And usually, when my characters do something wild, it improves the story. So.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. The one of the problems I've had with outlining, see, we are going to stay on topic. One of the problems I've had with outlining is I tell everyone the story. For my book, Everybody Takes the Money, I actually did not an in-depth outline, but a general outline of the sections of the book. And I knew absolutely what the center section of the book was going to be. I had the whole thing set up. That was going to be the center, the midpoint of the novel. And I wrote it, and I said, this doesn't feel right. And I put the whole book aside for a while, and then I took it out and I said, you know, I like what's going on here, except for the center of the book. And I took the whole 15,000 word section out, and I had to refigure out that whole section of the book, which took a little while, let me tell you. And I had to figure out, you know, how she gets all that information. I introduced a whole new subplot, which hadn't existed until that point. And like, I really want to make outlining work for me, because not in for every little detail, or maybe for every little detail, I don't know, but just to give me a general roadmap. And so far, I haven't found a way of making it work. So
that's why we look at writing books and
writing, yes. Okay, so I'm now going to get all teachery. What's the word I'm looking for? Pedagogic on you. Save the Cat. Oh, look, a visual aid. Is one of the most popular writing guides out there. It was designed for screenwriters. And screenwriters need structure and outlines. I have a degree in film from USC, an MFA in screenwriting. And there are lots of really good reasons why you need outlining for screenwriting. For one thing, you're not just writing to be read. You're writing because a whole bunch of people are going to need to look at that and figure out how to make a movie out of your screenplay. There are certain things that need to happen to get an emotional catharsis for the viewer.
Yes.
And, you know, you're not just like, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not just, your first draft can totally be, well, this happens and this happens. When it comes down to handing it to someone else, it had better be a lot tighter than that. Yeah. So, okay, so that's the setup. So what are these books about? These books are about structure. And here we go. We have visual aids, and these will be available on the website. So in case you're listening to this via iTunes, don't freak out. There is a link on our website to all of these pretty pictures that I'm about to show. So here is the general setup. These are terms generally used with screenwriting, but they apply to any sort of long form storytelling. Okay. So why do we need these guides? Why do we need structure? Here we have, what is it? Screen share. And here we go.
We need a structure
there we go. 3-act structure.
Yeah.
You have your whole long piece divided into 3 sections. Act 1 takes about a quarter of the story. Act 2 takes about half the story, and Act 3 takes about a quarter of the story. That is what people mean by 3-act structure. Then, how do I Now, sometimes people divide it up as a 3-act structure with a midpoint, where the midpoint comes in the middle of Act 2. And then sometimes they divide it up as a 4-act structure, and you might notice that looks a great deal like a 3-act structure with a midpoint in it. At USC, I learned the 8-sequence structure, which is the 3-act structure divided into 8 sequences, each roughly about 15 pages long. Each sequence has a general function. For instance, Act 1, the first sequence is the introduction to the main character's world. The point between 1 and 2 is he or she refuses whatever's going on. At the end of the second sequence is the point of no return, in which your main character is absolutely invested in the problem, etc. Okay, so again, here's our basic 3-act structure. At the end of Act 1, the main character is invested in the problem. Act 2, the problem develops, new things happen. At the end of Act 2, you have reached a critical point in the story. Act 3 is all about solving the problem. There are no more subplots. That it's just about fixing or solving the problem as it is. Okay. Good. Oh, there I am. Okay, so that is basic structure. You may have noticed
some graphics, by the way.
Yes, you may have noticed something about those graphics, and I will meet you in any bar in the world and argue that all structure systems are the exact same thing. Whether you are talking about Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, Dan Harmon, who's the guy who does Community, has something called a story circle that people really like. And what do you know? It's divided into 8 sections. And there's a point where the main character is fully invested in the problem, et cetera, et cetera. Trust me, I will argue with you. They are all the same thing. Why do we have these structures? Simple. This is a structure that has developed over millennia. Humans respond to it. We like knowing what the story is. We like seeing the characters getting involved and knowing that they're going to figure it out somehow.
They have to figure it out. That's the part that people need to be satisfied with the story. So this whole structure, the introduction, the convoluted part of Act 2 where everything goes haywire, and the solution, it's really hardwired into our brains, I believe, as listeners, readers, people who love stories.
Well, without having worked this out with Hannah ahead of time, she has in fact said the key phrase there, which is, why do writers need this so bad? I'll tell you why. It's because of this. Act 2 is everybody's biggest problem. Act 2 is the great Sahara Desert of the writing process. If generally people know their setup. They know what their big end of Act 1 is, where the main character is fully invested in the problem. Since everyone uses Star Wars as the example, Luke's family is dead. He has to leave Tatooine. He is invested in the problem at that point. There's no, well, maybe I'll go back and farm a little bit. There's point of no return. Act 2, it's what everybody wants to figure out, and they want an easy roadmap. The best description of Act 2 that I ever heard comes from Wordplay, which was a website run by Terry Rossio of Pirates of the Caribbean and Shrek and a million other art house movies you may have heard of. And that is, and I can't remember who said this on Wordplay, but Act 2 is the movie that everybody came to see. It is Indiana Jones going to look for the Ark. He hasn't looked for the Ark all of Act 1. Act 2, he looks for the Ark. Think of any story. Act 2. It's the hardest. It's the most complex. You have various subplots. You have different characters doing what they're doing. Which brings us back to Save the Cat. Why does everybody love Save the Cat so much, Hannah?
I think it's the title. I can't show you my copy because it's on my Kindle. I think Save the Cat is so persistent because it seems to give people a clear path. It seems to make it so easy because it teaches a method. It teaches this method with the I keep forgetting the English name for that, where you can use what are these little things? Post-it notes, for example, and you can outline your plot and you can just stick it all up and you can see it. And I think and it has this really fixed thing which might actually work for screenwriting because a movie does follow a much more strict format than a book does. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my impression. A movie has 90 minutes, and it has to work in those 90 minutes, and it has a very firm structure. And a book can have side plots, and a book can have it can shorten some parts, and it can do something different. But if a movie cannot. A movie has to follow a very strict timeline, a very strict outline, and that's what he teaches in Save the Cat. And it seems like it's the solution to all of the writer problems because he has this
He
nice
said an important word there, folks. Solution. That is what everyone is looking for. Save the Cat is ridiculously prescriptive. I mean, let's look, shall we? Where is the beat sheet? Oh God, I should have marked this ahead of time. Here, Hannah, talk some more while I look this up.
Oh, right. Well, basically, writing creating a structure for your book is not easy, especially in that humongous second act where the hero gets tested, where a lot of stuff is going on, where you have all your subplots, and it's hard to keep it tidy. So most writers love to have a prescriptive method.
Prescriptive, another important word when talking about Save the Cat. So I found it here. Okay, so the beat sheet. On page 1, your opening image. On page 5, your theme stated. Again, this is out of a 110-page screenplay. On page 5, your theme stated. A catalyst appears on page 12. Break into the second act on page 25. How long the midpoint must be on page 55. What's one of the problems with these? Writing is hard. Developing a story is harder. Most development people, most human beings, let me put it that way. Most human beings know what a story is. They know if what they've heard is a story. They can't tell you why, but it's an innate thing. Most of the people working in Hollywood have zero idea what makes a story work. They can, however, tell you if the theme is stated on page 5. So that's what they're looking for. In case you think that most Hollywood movies are kind of formulaic now, because development execs can look at that and say, oh, look, we need a catalyst on page 12.
Yes, and that's the good and the bad of such a book, because I think it was supposed to help screenwriters, but it has become the rule. It has become the measuring stick.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, that's not what it was supposed to be. And I suppose the author wouldn't be happy to see that as a measuring stick for quality, which is kind of ridiculous. You can't really go and measure a book by opening page
Right.
200 of 400 pages and expect the turning point for the hero in there. Something that is ridiculous. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And what's, you know, like the bad guys close in is supposed to be within some certain page range.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, really? Maybe that works for your story and maybe it doesn't. Now, a lot of novelists use Save the Cat as like, oh, this is such a great way to figure out how to organize my story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not any different, I find, than any other structure. They talk about, you know, talking about breaking out the index cards and figuring out what happens at various places. Putting together a story is a hard process. And I was talking to a screenwriter named Eric Heiserer, who has worked on a lot of movies. He wrote and directed the movie The Hours with Paul Walker. And he's worked on a ton of horror movies and other kinds of movies. And he said, have you noticed how Save the Cat doesn't explain the structure of Breaking Bad at all? You know, yeah. Another one off the top of my head that has baffled a lot of writers is a movie that, did you ever see No Country for Old Men? The Coen brothers? No. I am iffy on the Coen brothers sometimes. My problem with No Country for Old Men, which is a brilliant movie, it really is. You know, the direction is awesome, the cinematography is awesome, the acting is out of this world. I hated this movie, and everything I hated about this movie was Cormac McCarthy. So, not the Coen brothers at all. Cormac McCarthy. There's something very interesting happens at the end of Act 2 of No Country for Old Men, and it happens off screen. And I know a lot of people who said, what? Why didn't we get to see that? That's really important. And it's like, it's really important if you're mistaken as to what the story of the movie is. If you think the movie is about a guy who found a bag of drug dealers' money, you're really confused by the end of Act 2. If you think the movie is, as I put it, death is coming to get you and there is nothing you can do about it, end of Act 2 makes perfect sense. Save the Cat does not show you how to do that. It's very, very in the moment and prescriptive, as you put it. So I'm not a fan. I mean, you know, I learned this whole 8 sequence. Here, I will screen share again. How do I do this? Hello. You know, this is the structure that I learned at USC. I still use this from time to time to like organize which things go where. It's a lot easier to, you know, if this is for a 300-page book, it's a lot easier to look at 40-page sections than to look at a 300-page book. Likewise, in a script, it's a lot easier to look at a 15-page sequence than it is to look at 110 or 120 pages. So, so yeah, do I still use that for organizing my books? Sure. Do I follow it slavishly? You get bad stories if you're trying to put tab A in slot B. Obviously, I feel very strongly about this. Do I think that learning the structure is a great idea? Absolutely. I think some writers could really use much more of a, you know, you need to keep upping the ante here, guys. You need to keep investing, as some people said, and this was never a help for me. you got to put your hero up a tree, then you throw rocks at him, and then you get him out of the tree. First time I heard that, I said, what? What is this about rocks and trees? I think that writers would be better served to write a whole bunch of stuff, then learn about structure, then apply it to their writing.
There's a step before even that.
Okay.
That's to read a lot of stories and actually notice what's going on. Like, I read the story by an author I met in an online forum, and he was nice to me, and I thought, hey, I'll be nice, I'll buy his story. And so I did, and it wasn't a great expense, and it wasn't a big loss. And I thought, sort of like, you know, you do me a favor, I do you a favor. Well, this man has not a good grasp of structure. And what he does is he takes people on a tour of his world for about the first 40 to 50% of his book. And then the story actually really begins. And I was like, start already, get things moving. and all the action happens in the second half of the book. And it doesn't entirely finish at the end of the book because he wants to write a sequel. So the structure is really off. The structure is completely off. And you never should waste, and I'm serious, waste a reader's time by being so enamored with the world building that you have to give him a tour of the world before anything happens. And so I won't mention names.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for this author because I think he does have a good story. He needs more work on it. But that is an example where it's very clearly that this person has no idea about a working structure for his book. You do need an introduction. I mean, a reader needs to get to know your hero so he can actually get emotionally attached to the hero or the 2 or 3 main characters. But you don't need to explain all the wonderful world that you created. I mean, that's a fantasy. That's something that happens most often in fantasy and science fiction, where people are so proud of their world. And there's a reason to be. I mean, you created a whole place. You created maps. You created creatures and people. You want to show them off. But
it really has to be something that you discover in the course of the story. It can't just be revealed for its own sake.
I love that. I've read one book, and I'm willing to name the book, and I will remember the author's name pretty soon. I didn't think it would come up. The book's called Transformation, and it literally starts out on a slave auction block in a town. And you gradually, along the story, learn about the slave who's being sold there, which is told in first person. And you gradually have little memories floating up, and you realize this man was a hero, a magician, and he ended up on the auction block because practically everyone he loves got killed, and he ends up as the slave of the person who ordered the killing. So this big picture emerges throughout the first half of the book. And there's also a reason why they start cooperating. And I love the entire book because it's so well integrated with the characters and everything. But the description is basically, you get fed breadcrumbs of the character's background, of the world background throughout the story. And that's really perfectly managed.
So who wrote that? Do you remember?
I could go and get it.
Okay. Well, send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes.
I'll look it up.
You
can use the Amazon catalog.
Yeah, the best way to learn about structure is to write a whole bunch of crap, and it will be, and then go back and analyze everything you read. There have been a number of books I've read that have lots of action scenes, and it's pretty much just one damn thing after another because there's no overarching story problem. It's like the main character has this problem, and then there's this problem, and it's like, you know what, great, I'm not invested in what's going on. Learning,
series of
yeah, one damn thing after another.
And I remembered the author name.
Oh, yes.
It's Carol Berg.
Oh, okay.
And I'll give you the details to use for the author notes. For
Okay.
What is one podcast notes? Whatever. So yeah, yes. There needs to be an overarching plot, and I think again that's not something Save the Cat necessarily addresses in detail, because there needs to be something that sort of holds the whole thing together. Something the hero wants, something the villain, the antagonist wants, and those two wants collide and they create conflict, and that usually drives the story. And it needs to have this connecting thing. You can't start with a farm boy,
Right.
the typical fantasy trope.
Right.
Start out with a farm boy who becomes the greatest magician and just end up with him being a farm boy again. Unless there's a plot that makes sense, but you need to have something that really holds the story together.
Right. Well, you need a problem at the beginning, and in general, I won't even say that this is always, but in general, it's not the problem that you really have. You start with one problem that's sort of an indicator of something, and then it grows into a bigger problem.
Yes.
If you start with the farm boy becoming the magician, and on page 1, he is having, he's like, well, now I'm going to be the greatest magician ever, and his first battle is about, being a great magician. I'm not invested yet. You got to ramp up. Really analyze books that work for you. Only after you've written stuff, go look at structure books to read about it. There's no easy way around this.
And I want to show you another structure book that I like.
Okay.
And it's called The Plot Whisperer.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
Aid, Plot Whisperer. And they have a nice little graphic, which actually reflects the 3-act structure, so there's nothing new.
Okay.
And you can see can you see that? Because
pull it back a little. Yeah.
Like this.
Okay.
You can see the tension rising, and then there's the final act has this everything is lost, and then here it is the
right. Except by the way,
turning point and everything.
Unless you have a tragedy, in which case all is lost is how the story ends, if it's going to end well.
Yeah, well, that's it's the devil's in the detail.
Again, I will fight you about any structure. They're all the same.
They are the same. Yes.
Yes. I even think I remember seeing some kind of graphic like that when I was starting out, going, wait, what is this rising? What does that mean? And I would have been much better served by sitting down with books that I really liked, and writing down in each chapter what happens, what changed, where are we now. That was actually one of the best classes I took at USC, where they had a variety of films. Man, I'd have to go back and look at them to see what they were. I know Roman Polanski's The Apartment was one, and they showed us the reels out of order and no one noticed. That's how weird that movie was. The last, it was a film noir by, anyhow, I have to go back. There was a Swedish movie. I mean, we saw a variety of movies, and we would watch the movie through, and then we'd watch it again, and he would stop and say, see how they set this up, see how now the main character is invested. And it didn't matter whether you were doing film noir or A Fish Called Wanda was one of them. it didn't matter what kind of movie it was.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit down and analyze it and go, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Where are we in terms of the rising tension and stuff? You will eventually begin to see, in fact, this became so obvious that I was at The Man in the Iron Mask with Leonardo DiCaprio. Actually, he was in the movie. I was at the movie with my husband. And and I had to go to the bathroom. And I said, wait, should I go now? And then I said, we're not even at the end of Act 2 yet, because they were hitting those plot points like you could see them in neon. And in fact, I went to the bathroom, I came back, another scene or two, it was like, end of Act 2, all is lost. Everything is terrible. I'm like, okay. It was so by the numbers. So yes, I really recommend doing your own analysis of these things. You have to be able to see it for yourself. Save the cat is not going to save your bacon.
No. And I mean, I think that is something to know about every writing guide. None of them, not one of them is the holy grail. You will never find one that will turn you into into a best-selling author by just reading it. And what you have to do is I mean, I wrote for about 10 years before even buying my first writing guide. Because I decided I wanted to do my stuff. I wanted to create my stories. I think I created a couple good ones. I know there's at least one novel that I need to rework completely for it to work. And I really refused writing advice because I wanted to figure out this creative process. I have been reading, and I've been reading fantasy since I was 15, and I'm turning 50 this year. So
Damn.
so I've been reading a lot, and I've really been paying attention, and I can tell exposition, and I can tell, you know, it's with you with the movies. If I read something, I know, yep, they're setting this one up. There's some writers that are so transparent that I can see the plot while I'm reading the book, and I don't usually like that because it means a writer was following a writing guide and it's too obvious. But the only thing you can do is, if you want to read those books, and I think you should, because it helps to have a general idea. Because I mean, this poor guy who spent 40% of his book on describing his world, he certainly should read a writing guide on structure. But take what works for you. Don't ever believe it's an absolute. Don't follow that 100%, because it's highly likely it's not going to work entirely for your story. You'll be unhappy with your story. Readers will notice the artificial plot points that you stick in there just to follow your guide. So yes, do read them. Do pick from them what feels good, what works for you, and most of all, my goodness, build your writing muscle. Write those
Yes.
stories. Ask your beta readers for
Yes.
feedback. Ask them what works.
Nothing beats writing your own stories and doing your own analysis. You know, you can keep this stuff in mind because there is a general shape to stories, but you got to put in the effort.
And I think it helps if you write in different formats. I used to be very active on message boards, and I still run my own, which is not really doing well these days. But for years and years, I used to run a flash fiction contest, a monthly flash fiction contest, which meant, since there never were enough entries, that I would write a piece just to have one more.
Right.
We usually had 3 to 5 entries, so mine was kind of essential. Which meant every month I was writing a piece of flash fiction, usually 250 words. Now, if you use 250 words, you basically focus on the major turning point in a larger story. You just have this laser focus on the one thing that twists everything, that twists the hero, that ushers in the solution or the end. And then you can start. I mean, it is really a laser focused thing if you write these utterly short flash fiction pieces. And I actually published a story that has 82 words.
Wow.
Yeah, it was in Antipodian SF. It's still up there on the website. Didn't get paid for it. It's a for the love publication, but I was very happy they took it. And it's entirely written in dialogue too, so that's kind of really fun. And when you graduate writing short stories, it's a short story is basically also just a part of a novel, and it's again that part where the life changes, where the hero hits this big shift that changes everything. And if you can write short stories well, you have learned, because I think the 3-act structure still works even in a short story. You need the intro, you need a bit of complication, and you need the showdown.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that well in a short story, and my goodness, the trend has been ever shorter short stories. I find it really hard to develop a character in 2,000 words. So, but writing that kind of story totally focuses your attention on what's happening. You can't waffle in a short story. You just don't have the room for it.
You don't have time.
A lot of people waffle in novels because, hey, what does it matter? 250,000 words? Who cares?
Right.
But if you have a word limit of 5,000 words, and that's generous nowadays, most magazines, that's why they cut off 5,000 words. You have to focus on what is the hero's job, what is the big challenge he or she has, and you have to work on that. And you need to get your act together, which is quite a fun, but you need that structure. You can't waffle in a short story. So writing short stories, writing flash fiction, is a great way of exercising your writing muscle. It's a great way of building your vocabulary, because in flash fiction, every word must pull its weight. You can't waste the words. And yet, really keep your focus on the structure. Keep your focus on what you need to do to get the reader into the story, to give the reason why your hero does what he does, why he starts that arduous journey. And the hero's journey is another structure. We don't go into that, but
doesn't matter. It's the same damn structure as all the other ones. So I will.
And as a coach, I will
say, any bar in the world.
As a coach, I will say, your hero will also need to grow as a person, as a character. He or she will have to develop and grow into the person who can deal with the actual challenge. And I think if you don't have that kind of growth, readers will eventually abandon your hero, which kind of makes it difficult to write a series, because you still want your hero to grow, but he has to grow slowly.
Yes.
Or you lose the series. And that's the biggest problem if you have any movie series, not a movie series, if you have like Star Trek, or I never watched, I don't think there is a Star Wars series, but there you have Star Trek, and basically at the end of an episode, the characters have to be back to who they are.
Right.
They can have growth if it's really well scripted, but usually you start at the beginning, you have a problem, and if someone gets transformed or hurt or whatever, at the end of the episode, they need to be back where they started off. And viewers really hate it if a character gets changed permanently. So that's a big challenge, to have a hero stay the same and yet grow. In your story, you're free to have personal growth. They may have to develop more strength, more resilience, more cunning. They may have to learn how to use a laser sword, whatever.
Right.
They have to grow in a story.
And no structure available is going to tell you how to do that at all.
No.
It has to be organic to the story that you're telling.
Absolutely.
And I'm with you. It's a pain in the ass figuring it out every time. I'm like, can't this just be easy? And I check off check mark, the check off the check boxes.
Yeah.
So.
And what I do is I think I have soaked up so many good stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I have soaked up so much storytelling that when I really trust my writing intuition, and I trust this feeling when I go and read back, does this scene engage me? Does it grip me? Does it move me? Does it make sense? Then I know it works. And I tell you, the first two novels I wrote and edited heavily several times and sent them to my agent when I still had one and all that. I can still get lost in them. I can still get lost in them. I read the story and with the idea of, well, let's do a final editing pass, and because I'm sending it off to a friend, I get lost in those stories. And
Yeah.
I think if that happens to you as a writer, that's a sign of a good story. If you can lose yourself, even if you can, you know it so well, you can sing it, but you still lose yourself in it. That's what you should aim for. A story that really takes your heart and plucks it.
So Hannah's recommendation, and we will have links to these on the website, on the story notes, is The Plot Whisperer by Martha Alderson. My recommendation is a series of blog posts available for free by Sean Coyne. Sean Coyne is a business partner of Stephen Pressfield. And if you haven't read Stephen Pressfield's books, what is your problem? At the very least, start with The War of Art. He also has Do the Work and Turning Pro. I cannot recommend these books highly enough. I was actually on the ferry from Vancouver to Vancouver Island reading Turning Pro, and I kept texting my friend who was also reading the book at the same time going, this is amazing. This is completely blowing my mind. I mean, I remember where I was reading this book. Sean Coyne is Pressfield's business partner. They, I guess, have Black Irish books together or something. And he has a website called The Story Grid. And what his thing is you write the story first. Just write it. No editing, no figuring it out. Then he gives you a series of really great tools to help you analyze your own work. He's not going to tell you what to do. He's not going to say, you must have this plot point on page 45. Mm-hmm. That's not, you figure it out. But these tools, I was looking at them going, dude, you're just giving these away? Really? Most people set up weekend seminars for $699 to do this kind of thing. It's really, it's brilliant stuff. He does an analysis of Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris that I think is well worth the price of admission, and it's free. Come on. So yes, we're almost at the hour mark here. Our recommendations: yes. Read a lot. Read everything.
I want to mention one more thing.
Oh, yes.
People probably will stumble about, especially writers and people who want to become writers. You will probably stumble on NaNoWriMo, National November Writing Month.
Here in America, we pronounce it NaNoWriMo. Continue.
Thank you. My German coming through. And you will probably stumble on, I think his name is Chris Beatty. Chris Beatty's book, No Plot, No Problem. And I have it in my bookshelf.
Yeah, I was going to say I have it somewhere.
Take it out. And I think it isn't bad advice. It goes with what you just said. Just write out that story. But I also think it is a little misleading because what you have at the end of NaNoWriMo is not a novel. It
No,
is at best a first draft,
I agree wholeheartedly.
a collection of scenes that need to be put into order. So it's a fun book to read. It's great inspiration if you need some writing prompts and nudges, but don't believe that will turn you into an accomplished and possibly best-selling author.
Yeah. In fact, I think probably next week, well, wait, the wrap up here. Read a lot of stuff. Read a variety of authors. Read authors who write in your genre. Read authors who are not in your genre.
Absolutely.
After you read them, then analyze them. And analysis is the death of joy when it comes to reading. It's a two-step process. Read, then analyze.
Yes.
With your writing, write, then analyze. These structure books are useful, but they are not the be-all, end-all, and they will not save you or your cat. It's work. It's work, folks. If you're writing a boy meets girl romance, it's work. I don't care how simple you think it's supposed to be. It's going to be work. And I want the answers. I want the cheat sheet. I do. I admit it. I'll just come out. I want to be able to cheat, but it's work. So we have, so next week. Oh, right. So that's it for this week's podcast of the 21st Century Writer. Join us next week when Hannah and Diane discuss finishing your stuff, the other curse of the writer, finishing. And I think NaNoWriMo or NaNoWriMo, depending on which part of the world you're from, is an important part of that. It's a very useful tool.
It is. I totally agree.
I owe NaNoWriMo much. It is not everything, however. So, finishing your stuff.
Coming up next week.
Coming up next week. So, thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you next time. So, signing off for now, my name is Diane Patterson.
And I am Hannah Steenbach.
And we will talk to you again. Bye.
Bye.